Vladimir Putin and Alexander Lukashenko met once again, for the fourth time already, at Valaam. Perhaps they are trying to hide their actions. They hugged, looking unwell. One looks emaciated, the other barely fits in the frame. His face is flushed. But everything remains unchanged. Vladimir Putin declared, "I have conditions." If he'd said anything different, it might have mattered. The only notable thing was the bench, nicer than the men on it. Symbolically, they sat on a log, with Lukashenko even bringing his dog. Those conditions have remained the same. These are not conditions but goals. I formulated Russia's goals, and so far they have not changed. We'll remind viewers of the conditions Putin set before the June peace summit in Switzerland, which we've discussed before. I attended that summit, and will briefly go over those conditions. These regions are within their administrative borders, which existed at the time of their incorporation into Ukraine. As soon as Kyiv officially declares its readiness to take such a decision, begins the actual withdrawal of troops from these regions, and gives notice of its abandonment of plans to join NATO, a ceasefire and the start of negotiations will immediately follow on our part. Andriy Kovalenko, head of Ukraine's Center for Countering Disinformation, said Putin twisted facts, claiming he supports talks while Ukraine does not. Kyiv backed the US ceasefire proposal in March and is ready to meet with Trump, Erdogan, and Europeans. In reality, Putin wants to continue military actions and shelling. The cure for lies is a painful blow. Zelensky said, "We appreciate Donald Trump's efforts. We are ready for negotiations and a meeting." Yet Putin's words and his entourage's reactions show he intends to prolong the war. Instead of a clear response to Trump's late ultimatum, he showed fear as time runs out. On the night of July 31st, Kyiv was struck, killing 31 people, including children as young as 2, and wounding 159. One cannot expect anything else from Vladimir Putin. He is a homicidal maniac. He cannot stop the war not only for political reasons. Many believe that if he stops the conflict, he will lose face. All of this is important, but the most important thing is his psychopathic state. He is a pathological personality comparable to Andrei Chikatilo, a late Soviet-era maniac who brutally murdered dozens of women and tortured them. He's about the same. The West has already realized that Vladimir Putin is a criminal. Thank God that after 20 years of his rule this has become obvious. However, they still have not realized that he is a pathological personality with whom it is impossible to negotiate, make deals or compromises. How can there be compromise with a maniac? He keeps on killing. All his rhetoric is only needed to fulfill his basic instinct. Vladimir Putin's basic instinct is the instinct to kill. He needs to kill people, and he is demonstrating it. Strikes on Kiev and civilians are being carried out daily. Only sadism can be seen in this. At the beginning of the conflict, propagandists claimed that massive strikes would quickly lead to victory. Then General Sergei Surovikin, who was called Armageddon, was active. He was later nearly sent to arrest. Surovikin claimed that the strikes would send Ukraine back to the 17th century. Clearly, these strikes achieved no strategic goals, as even Putin now sees. Ukraine won't be sent back to the 17th or 18th century. The only purpose is killing for the sake of killing. Putin knows Ukrainians won't be intimidated. After 3 years of war and air terror, demoralizing Ukrainian society has never succeeded. No rational reasons can be seen in Vladimir Putin's actions. Donald Trump keeps trying to make deals with him, which looks like absolute absurdity. Putin is like a character from Mikhail Saltykov-Shkedrin's fairy tale, where the town governor, instead of a brain, had an organ that played one tune and repeated a few words. He acts according to a broken record, even though he realizes that no one will agree to his terms. He needs this only to have a formal reason to explain to Donald Trump why he is continuing the war. And he continues it because he wants to destroy both Ukraine and Ukrainians. This is no longer a secret in Russia, even if it is a Polichinelle secret. It has recently become widely known. The information has been widely disseminated. An article appeared on the website of RIA Novosti, the official state news agency, in which it is stated in direct text that the task is to destroy Ukrainians. If they do not want to surrender, they will be destroyed in maximum numbers. This is already being openly written and spoken about. The situation is deadlocked. Volodymyr Zelensky said today that the world community, including Ukraine's allies, should focus on removing Vladimir Putin, neutralizing him, so that he no longer leads Russia and no longer poses a threat to the world. As long as Putin is in power, there is no chance for peace. There is no chance for peace either in Ukraine or in Europe, as Europeans see the possibility of a Russian strike as a real prospect in the coming years, before the end of the decade. This is widely spoken and written about. I noticed the RIA Novosti article. It reads like a manifesto. As the Kremlin's propaganda outlet, it published Kirill Strelnikov's words. There is no other option. Those alive in Ukraine are still illiterate and must be taught. Kirill Strelnikov believes no one should be left in Ukraine. The time for enlightenment is over. The Kremlin won't persuade anyone anymore. If people choose to die for their leaders, that's their decision. According to him, lacy underpants are the problem. The dead are useless. His statement outlines the Kremlin's plan for the next decade. This is the Kremlin's plan. They failed to seize Ukraine in 2022, and it became clear in February of the same year. To defeat it, to subdue it, to turn it into a colony by military means was not possible. This is psychopathology in its purest form. This psychopathology of Vladimir Putin extends not only to his inner circle, but also to those who are guided by his behavior, either losing touch with reality or imitating madness. This applies primarily to Dmitry Medvedev, but also to individual propagandists such as Kirill Strelnikov and Vladimir Solovyov. RIA Novosti does not publish material without the approval of the administration of President Vladimir Putin. This publication was not the initiative of Kirill Strelnikov or the editor of RIA Novosti, but was at least coordinated and possibly initiated by the Putin administration. It most likely took place with the participation of Alexei Gromov or Sergei Kirienko, people who fully reflect his views. Putin's views are no longer a secret. The Russian dictator not only seeks to destroy Ukrainians and realize his imperial ambitions, but also shows disregard for his own citizens. Today, at a meeting with Serhiy Krasnoshchek, he stated that there had been no aimless losses. Everything was going according to plan, including the situation in Yarovka, Kursk region, and the positions of the forces of the armed forces of Ukraine, just as earlier in Kyiv, which was supposedly to be captured in 3 days. These statements look like mockery. Ukrainian leadership is said to be unaware of the true battlefield situation. Analysts Denis Popovich and Yan Matveev note Putin receives distorted info, command lies to get leave by claiming captured territories, and to show the Russian army's strength. In reality, losses, including needless ones, continue. Donald Trump said that according to the data provided to him, about 20,000 Russian soldiers have been killed in the war with Ukraine this month. Since the beginning of 2025, Russian casualties have totaled 112,500. He called those deaths unnecessary. Trump estimated that Ukraine has also suffered serious losses, with approximately 8,000 Ukrainian soldiers killed since January 1st, 2025. This number excludes the missing. Ukraine has lost many civilians from Russian missile strikes on Kyiv and other areas. Melania Trump seems actively involved. This war shouldn't have happened. It's Joe Biden's war, not Donald Trump's. I'm here to try to stop it. I want to tell Trump it's time to act, but he just watches. In doing so, he explicitly states that Vladimir Putin's actions are disgusting, that sanctions are ready, and that Putin has until August 8th. This more realistic assessment from Trump indicates that Putin is disgusted with him, or is it still part of some kind of game? Donald Trump always has a game. He is an absolute player. In parallel with his tough statements, he tries not to get personal, not to burn bridges with Vladimir Putin, just as Putin did with Trump. At the same time, there was information that they are sending Vitkova again, like pirates. And of course, we would like to understand what exactly is behind it. Some claim that Donald Trump intends to convey compromise proposals to Vladimir Putin, which is why he is once again sending Vitkov. Vitkov is considered close to the Russian oligarchy and top brass and represents Trump's interests in those circles. He has ties to many Russian oligarchs. He is also connected with American oligarchs of Russian origin. It is a single mafia. Leonard Blavatnik, Viktor Vekselberg, and Roman Abramovich are representatives of one system. Although they may be different families, the mafia is united. Vitkov does business with them, and with Blavatnik, frankly, as a commercial partner. In addition, he interacts with Kirill Dmitriev and the Russian Direct Investment Fund. Joint business initiatives are being implemented, including in the Middle East. This man has close ties to the Kremlin, and sending him may be an attempt by Donald Trump to use his last chance to persuade or intimidate Vladimir Putin. In turn, the Russian side expects that with its influence on Vitkov, it will be able to present the situation to Trump in such a way that Russia is not hindering his peace initiatives or preventing him from receiving the Nobel Peace Prize, but rather facilitating it so that he will perceive it that way. Donald Trump is a typical arrogant boss who interprets reality depending on who first brought information to him. In this sense, Vitkov is dangerous because he can try to influence the perception of the situation. However, no amount of blackmail will work on Vladimir Putin and his entourage. They will not stop under any circumstances until they are physically harmed. Vitkov will have to come to Donald Trump and say that Vladimir Putin has not accepted the proposed conditions, but the situation is not so critical. Allegedly, under certain circumstances, he is ready for dialogue. Therein lies the danger associated with Vitkov's personality and connections. The history with Iran, where he failed completely, inspires optimism that the failure will be repeated. There is hope that he has suffered a final defeat in the Middle East as well. Donald Trump had a mission to stop Israel's actions in Gaza. This he did not do for humanitarian reasons, but on a promise made to Qatar. Qatar gave him an airplane and promised investment. In return, Trump guaranteed that he would stop Israel in Gaza. Vitkov traveled extensively between Qatar and Israel and tried to pressure Benjamin Netanyahu, but it was to no avail. No agreement could be reached with Hamas on the release of the hostages being tortured and with Benjamin Netanyahu on a temporary end to the war. It is not worth going into details, but the dry residue is that the situation in Gaza has not improved despite the efforts of a so-called diplomat who is a New York salesman of low intelligence. Sometimes Donald Trump's staffers display behavior reminiscent of a scene from Molière's play, A Burglar in the Nobility. Their statements seem so absurd that it is hard to imagine them in reality, as if they were possible only in classic comedies. When Witkoff was at Emmanuel Macron's reception at the Élysée Palace, he commented, noticing the stucco, "Oh, Trump's estate is about the same." It's both scary and funny at the same time. It makes you smile on one side and sad on the other. He's a completely pointless negotiator, but he is theoretically capable of influencing Donald Trump. I would hate to believe it, but the possibility exists.